All right, let's talk to education expert Professor Brahm Fleisch from the Wits School of Education. Prof, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. So first, let's talk about this proposal. It's very important to stress that this is not the official word from the Education Minister. They're still discussing the way forward. But if it does happen that we go back to school next week for grades 12 and 7, is that the right move?
The parents are obviously very anxious, and so are teachers. But I think if you look closely at the plan, the department has thought a great deal about how to phase in the implementation so they could allow schools to resume without prejudicing the majority of learners at the schools.
Yeah, and how important is it for schools to restart soon, because we're already going into May?
I think it's important. We need to recognize that for the grade 12s, missing out the year would mean that they would have to repeat an entire year. And for many other learners, the sooner we can get back into classrooms and teaching, obviously with full safety in mind, the better, because learners often lose out. The longer they're out of school, much of the learning that they've gained in the year and the previous years will be lost. So the longer the period, the more challenging it will be to catch up.
Yeah, and then specifically grade 7 and 12, it's important that they return soon enough, but is it going to be enough time for them to actually prepare and get ready for final examinations?
I think if you look at the plan and they're presented today, there's a recognition that there will be days lost, but those days will be compensated for days that they'll be taking during what were the July holidays, and there's also a possibility that they could use weekends, although that would have to be negotiated with unions. So it is possible to make up not all, but many of the days and still in keeping with the promise of completing the year for the grade 12s in 2020.
And then let's talk about the other grades, because it's important to note that every parent and pupil is wondering when they're going back to school. If we see them go back to school at the end of May, is that enough time for them?
Again, I think that some compromises would have to be made. I think that if we do use days in the July holidays and the September holidays, when we extend the school year in December, then we could make up considerable numbers of days that were lost during this period when the children were not at school. But I think we'd also need to reduce the curriculum load. We know that our curriculum at the moment is very packed. So in order to achieve that, we definitely have to do some modifications. And I know that in some of the provinces and at national, there's considerable work going on at the moment, looking at what could be postponed until subsequent years, what areas of the curriculum could be pared down, and what would be absolutely essential that would be included in this academic year.
I mean, does that entail making it easier to pass this year, or just forgetting about certain sections of the curriculum so that people can get through what they can?
I mean, I think that the crucial issue is about teaching and teaching the content that is appropriate for our learners to achieve the kind of outcomes that we want.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's very hard to know whether it will be easier or more difficult. I think this is going to be a challenging year for all of our children and all of our teachers. So it's, to say it's going to be easier, I don't think for anybody it's an easy year, even if some of the content won't be covered in the way that it was covered in previous years.
So what are the knock-on consequences of that then?
I think we've got a curriculum that ensures that themes are repeated at greater depth subsequent years, so that it is possible for some themes to be explored again in subsequent years. A grade 2 theme would then be explored again in a grade 3 or a grade 4, so that it is possible to make up. Now, there's no doubt that lost time we cannot completely make up all learning that would be lost because of the days lost. But I think we can, over time, particularly if we focus on good planning, do a good job in ensuring that this is not a major problem for children going forward.
And then very quickly, I've heard some experts talk about, younger children in school, grade ones in particular, who would have learned so much up until now and then expected to pick up, which might not be possible for them because they might not be able to remember what they've learned over the past couple of months. How would the department deal with that?
It is a really big challenge, and I think you're absolutely right to put your finger on some of the really serious gaps that will emerge for young children. That said, I think that with careful planning and a really careful reflection on what the sequenced learning tasks are, it is possible to recap and to ensure that children don't automatically miss out on core learning skills as they move through the early grades.
All right, thank you so much for your time and your insight. Appreciate it. That is Professor Brahm Fleisch from the Wits Education School.